egalitarianism between men and women?
Yes.
No other real qualifiers?
Not for me. I do think it's difficult to define because I think that everyone kind of has their own definition. So when talking about it, it's difficult to like discuss feminism as like a monolithic thing. But yeah, I think it's a good working definition.
If it's a movement towards egalitarianism, this would imply that there was not egalitarianism, and so feminism was set in opposition to patriarchy.
Yes, I would agree.
Okay, so that's an entailment we can agree to.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start with a basic argument before I move to larger arguments. My first argument, my first objection, is what I call an equal force objection. Men are the enforcement arm of society. And because they are the enforcers of rights, and I don't believe that rights exist as an objective standard, but rather they're a social construction of the mind, what I think we actually have is what's called force, right? So force are rights. That's all rights really can be, because the entailment of a right is it's only as good as who can enforce it. I do not believe that women can enforce their own rights and that only men can enforce their rights, and so therefore I do not believe egalitarianism is possible, nor should it be something that we move towards.
Mm-hmm. So you think that men are the enforcement arm in the sense that they enforce rights or our conception of rights, or are you arguing that they're the enforcement arm as in like they're enforcing law and order?
Well, let's back up to make sure that we're not speaking past each other again. Okay. So rights, you would agree, are not a tangible thing, but they're just a conception. They're
I agree with that.
A social construction.
Yes.
So if you are to have a right, an entitlement, absent a duty, if we can define a right as that, then what you're really talking about is force. You're talking about having force to make sure that you have this entitlement. That would be necessary. And so when I'm talking about force, I'm saying that men have the monopoly on force. And because they have a monopoly on force, anytime they so choose, they can take the rights away from women, but it's never possible the other way around.
I guess I would disagree that rights are only upheld through force. Like in this day and age, I think that it's easy to say that hypothetically men could turn against women and use like brute strength and brute force to take away rights, but I think that Sorry. It's okay. I think that we have a pretty
mocking her, Brian?
a pretty well-founded legal system that we used to uphold rights, or our conception of rights. I think I would disagree that rights are only force. I do agree that they are a social construction.
Your legal system is force.
I mean, the legal system, yes, it's force. It's coercion, but I think...
no, it's not just coercion. It's force. So if absent you doing whatever the legal system determines you must do, what is the remedy?
I mean, that's a good point. I just think that... Do you think that rights are enforced, like, physically? Like,
yes.
Do you think that men... Okay.
Physically.
Could you give me an example of that? Because I think I don't really fully understand.
If you want to make an appeal that your rights are in some way being taken away from you, or your rights in some way are being violated, who would you make the appeal to?
Supreme Court? I don't know.
And so let's assume whoever you make this appeal to on a court agrees with you. They're going to be able to use the power of their office to appeal to brute force in order to defend or take your right away. So if I want to send you to prison, I'm taking your rights away, right? Does that require force? Physical force?
Yes.
And does it require physical force to keep you there?
Yeah, I would say that taking someone to prison and keeping someone in prison does require physical force. But I mean, I guess abortion rights, it's a very recent... I fail to see how the right to get an abortion, maybe not the right, because obviously punishing someone who performs an illegal abortion involves taking someone to prison, but how is the right to an abortion upheld by physical force?
Well, because if you go to get an abortion, okay, and somebody comes in to stop you from getting an abortion, meaning they're going to stop you from exercising that right, if that's a right you believe you have, wouldn't you make an appeal to men with guns to come in and stop them from stopping you from doing that?
Okay, I think I understand what you mean now. I think I didn't fully understand what you mean. But, in that case, women can train to use weaponry and use guns. I mean, we have weaponry now that can kind of fill the gap between men and women's.
Everything comes down to actual physical force. And let me explain what I mean. There's not one time in history ever that you can point to where women have been able to collectively use force in order to dominate men. However, every point in history I can almost point to where men can and have done that, and the opposite cannot be true. Meaning that if men in even small collectives decide to take the rights away from women, there's not actually anything women can do about it. However, if women mildly and collectively, or in a small or large collective, try to take the rights away from men, there is something they can do about that.
But I do think that would require somehow taking weaponry out of the picture. I mean, but
you don't need to take weaponry out of the picture. Weapons require strength to use. Those who are strong can use them better. Not only that, field equipment weighs a lot, right? Equipment in general weighs a lot. You also have the endurance problem, the skeletal problems. You have the heat regulation problems. The distinctions between men and women are incredible. And so when you look at a force applicator, men have a monopoly on force. By the way, I can demonstrate this pretty easy. Western nations have become more egalitarian than they ever have been. You would agree, right?
Yeah.
But who still stays predominantly in these enforcement positions?
I mean, predominantly, yes, but
why?
Women... Well, obviously, I totally agree with you that there is a physical difference between men and women, and they are stronger. But I do think that the gap is significantly smaller with weaponry. I don't think it's fully, brought to an equal playing field. But
in other words, if men have weapons and women have weapons, women lose.
I mean, yeah, but there are women in law enforcement.
Yes.
There are female prison wardens, COs, things like that. So
and they are, and while there are some exceptional women, I agree, who can be inside of positions like this, there are some exceptional women. Maybe one day we'll have that first female Navy SEAL. Maybe it'll happen. Okay, wait, it hasn't happened yet, but one day there will be an exceptional Navy SEAL, badass G.I. Jane type chick who can wear the skin tight leather with the hand grenades and do the ninja kicks. But those are going to be exceptional cases.